Fearscape Media Network, exploring the unknown, one podcast at a time.
Support for the Fearscape Media Network is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming champions of the world. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer just for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code FEARSCAPE at manscaped.com.
Hi, friends. This is Kelly with Wishful Drinking and Binge Thinking, the podcast where I get just absolutely hammered and I dole out psychological advice. That's right, I am going to be more drunk than that girl you met in the bar bathroom after your karaoke set who said, "You have such good stage presence. Oh my god." That's right, 0 preparation, multiple drinks, countless profound gems. Tune in the last Monday of every month on Fearscape Media Network.
Coming to you from nowhere, a suburb of parts unknown. Your ghoulish hosts for an evening of terror, Stefan Gearhart and Lance Wayne, the Misters of the Dark.
Good evening, dear friends. Welcome to another terrifying episode of Misters of the Dark. Yes, I created my own echo. The greatest horror podcast in the history of horror podcasting. As always, we're beaming directly to you from nowhere, a suburb of parts unknown. And I am your head mister, Lord Stefan Gearhart.
And I'm your co-mister, the man with no name, Lance White. But you know what, Stefan? You know what's really big at getting under my skin lately?
Oh, I suspect the usual acts of kindness, people who say they're so jelly, people who spell out y'all and Tom Cruise and different things like that.
Well, yes. But there has been something else that has kept me more morose as of late.
Okay, like Jaws, I'll bite. What is it?
You!
Say what? Me?
Ever since you've received that lord title, you have been even more arrogant and snotty than you usually are.
Oh my god, Lance, you are so jelly. I knew this was bound to happen. I've noticed that you've had a little bit more greenish tint as of late. I thought it was a normal case of gonorrhea, but alas, I finally realized it was simply envy.
Envy? You great white dope, I'd rather have gonorrhea.
Well, be that as it may, dear Lancey Poo, I don't want to think any less of yourself just because of some silly old title. Just because I have a little more jurisdiction than you doesn't make anything...
You'll never say that.
Oh, excuse me.
Yes, Sam from the Telegram Sam Company. Telegram for co-mister, no name.
Yes, thank you. I'll make sure he receives it.
What? No tip?
Here's your tip.
Can I have that, please, your lordship? I can still read my own mail, can't I?
I guess. Here you are.
Thank you. Dear co-mister, no name, we are pleased to inform you. Oh, Oh my God, this is great.
Wait a second. You're happy? Let me take a look at that. Okay, let's see. You're informing you. Oh, hell no. You cannot be serious.
Oh, believe it, Lord Stefan. The man with no name, no more. You are now gazing upon the beautiful visage of the king with no name.
I think I'm gonna be sick. I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Who knew we had royalty in our blood? Think of my contemporaries. King of the Monsters, King of Rock and Roll, Jerry the King Lawler.
Oh, shut up. Will you just stuff it in a haunted doll and stick it?
Oh, oh, don't be so rude, oh lowly one. For as my first act as king, I decree that we visit that little place called Production Hell, and we read a certain script, Reanimator 3, Mr. West Goes to Washington.
So let's get this show on the road there, Lance. Okay. Okay.
You mean
so
his holiness.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, King Dingling. Okay.
King Dingle. Yeah, that was my porn name back in the day.
Yeah. Well, let's just go. Okay, you've intrigued me with a third Reanimator because it's a travesty that there never was a third Reanimator. So, let me know. What do we got? What do we got?
Third Reanimator.
Yeah, I know that it's the third Reanimator, you schmuck.
There was a third. No, there really was a third Reanimator. It was called Beyond Reanimator.
Oh, so this is the fourth one. Shit. There is Beyond Reanimator, isn't there?
Yep, there's Reanimator, Bride of Reanimator, and Beyond.
Do you know how much
Reanimator.
wine I've drank since I've become Lord Stefan?
Oh,
okay,
God.
You'll.
Well,
so
anyway,
get me with the forquel. The forquel. Okay, it's a travesty. Look, I mean, I'm retroactively changing my thought here. Okay, that because I stupidly forgot about Beyond Reanimator because I live in Bride of Reanimator. Okay, and
well. Maybe if you laid off the line, you wouldn't have these little.
I have to lie
hiccups.
down. I have a bad back. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the forquel. Tell me about the forquel of Reanimator in this production hell.
All right. Well, this is like our Freddy, our other production hell with Freddy Krueger. This comes to us from Bloody Disgusting. Great website. Mm-hmm. Love it. And it is part of their Phantom Limbs article. They do it every now and then. It's called House of Reanimator.
Ooh, so we're going along the lines of like House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula.
Yeah, I would think so. Writer Dennis, I'm going to pronounce this wrong. I apologize. Polly remembers the sequel that never was. It says here in the article that with this entry of Phantom Looms, we'll be looking at House of Reanimator, the intended fourth installment of the Reanimator franchise. So you were right. According to what fans could occasionally glean from various horror websites in the mid to late aughts, I don't like.
Oh no, dude, I love aughts. I'm such a fan because you're like, what else are you gonna call it? You can't say 2000s because that's like the whole kit and caboodle. So you got to say aughts.
Yeah, you got a point. House would have found both Herbert West and his reluctant friend / partner in crime, Dan Kane, working in the White House. Wait. Yeah, but we'll get to resurrecting then President George W. Bush.
You remember that time we had the ghost of George Washington?
Oh yeah, that was fun. He was a good guy. He was fun.
So now imagine reanimating then George W. Bush.
I would probably,
because he's still alive.
Yeah, I would probably
twins.
I'd lay off of that. I'd let sleeping dogs lie if that were the case. Who was at the time was rumored to be portrayed by William H. Macy.
Ooh,
that's it. Could you see him as?
I'm already in. I'm in. I mean, you already had a couple people to choose from because you had Will Ferrell, and then you had that guy that was on Mad TV that played him all the time.
Frank Caliendo?
Yeah, Frank Caliendo.
Yeah.
And then you have the actor that just went around portraying him everywhere. But I could totally dig on William H. Macy playing a reanimated W.
Yeah, it's kind of it's an odd casting choice, but I think he could have made it work.
Make it work.
With the recent, all too untimely passing of horror master and intended house director Stuart Gordon, Bloody Disgusting thought it was high time to get the lowdown on one of the most fascinating sequels that never was. Dennis P. then. House co-writer, longtime Gordon friend, and collaborator, and a writer known for such films as the original Reanimator, From Beyond, Castle Freak, The Dentist, and Dagon.
Hey.
Castle Freak. I watched Castle Freak not too long ago. Have you ever seen Castle Freak?
The old one or the new one? Because there's
there's a remake, isn't there?
Yeah, the remake's supposed to be really good. It's on
That's
Shudder, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, I've seen the old one. I've seen Dagon, and I've also seen The Dentist. All of those are great.
I see.
Dagon is, of course, another H.P. Lovecraft. So
I thought that sounded familiar. I don't remember the film of it.
And if this forequel doesn't have Jeffrey Combs back, I won't watch it.
Well, for those who haven't yet seen the 3 Reanimator films, a quick recap. Herbert West, Jeffrey Combs is a brilliant but egotistical young medical student devoted to defeating death itself with a reagent serum that reanimates the dead.
Man, you're killing it today.
I know, I'm awful.
All of this, of course, don't forget, is based off of the H.P. Lovecraft little novelette, Herbert West Reanimator.
Yeah. Have you ever read that?
I have. I've read every single H.P. Lovecraft story. I got the whole compendium on my
me
phone
too.
and on my bookshelf.
That story, because H.P. Lovecraft, sometimes he gets so out there, I don't know what is going on around me for the next few hours.
Yeah, pretty much.
Herbert West was actually one of the ones really, oddly enough, sent a chill up my spine.
Agreed.
There's some out there stuff in there.
Yep. Do you know Jeffrey Combs was needing work? I mean, around this time he was doing Deep Space Nine and Voyager. Like, he was in all the Star Treks.
Yeah, Jeffrey Combs. Yeah.
So, I mean, he was pretty hot ticket at that point, so I'm surprised they didn't think it would be a good idea. But I know it was like 13 years in between Bride of Reanimator and Beyond Reanimator. So
talking to Dennis P. And it says, so how did the House of Reanimator project originate? With yourself, Stuart Gordon, or Reanimator franchise producer Brian Usna? I'm pronouncing it wrong again. He says, my recollection is that it was Brian's idea. He had been responsible to a great degree for the original Reanimator. He was the original producer who got in touch with Stewart, and he was a producer of a number of Stewart's other movies. Brian is a great producer to work with. Of the 3 of us, Stewart, Brian, and I would say the real true believer in the genre is Brian. Stewart and I have loved horror films since the time we met in high school, but Brian was the real prime mover and significantly dedicated himself to the genre to the extent that he recognized that the genre is not full of not just sequels but franchises. The Frankenstein franchise, the Dracula franchise, the Universal Monster franchises, but also Corman's Poe franchise. The work Corman did in developing Poe's works into film, Brian really saw that as a model that appealed to him and that he was really built for. He's very, very good at developing not only those kinds of projects, but franchises, not just sequels, but a series of films. He was responsible for developing the Reanimator series, the franchise including Bride of Reanimator and Beyond Reanimator. I was only involved in the original Reanimator. Reanimator co-writer Bill Norris and I did a treatment for Bride, but Brian decided to go in another direction. And frankly, Stuart and I were never really that interested in working on sequels, including sequels to our own work. It's kind of interesting that... I don't know. I just those aren't two. Of course, the Universal Monsters. We love those. Everybody loves those. For sure. But going off of Corman's model, who Corman, from what I've gathered, Corman was always the guy that was just like, "Hey, we need a movie to play in a drive-in. Can you do it with like no money and get it done in like 2 weeks?" And Corman would do it.
Yeah, Corman was like, "Who's got $5 and an idea? I'm bored."
What do you think of the some of the talent that worked with them? I know there's been more, but one who comes off the top of my head is James Cameron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of people put Corman and Troma kind of in the same bag, but they're not. They're very different.
They're very different
because Corman still tried to take his movies very seriously, whereas Troma does not try to take their movies seriously.
Oh no, but I love them both.
Oh, I do too. I do too.
But I can definitely see that. He continues, but Brian came to us with this idea, and it was Brian's original idea. We thought it was pretty good, especially at the time that Brian first proposed it, which was back during the first Iraq War, probably about 2004. So Brian came to us pretty early in the millennium with this idea, House of Reanimator. Notice how he's using the Frankenstein titles, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and House of Frankenstein. So yeah, it immediately struck a chord with Stewart. If you look at Stewart's films, and he doesn't always get credit for this, but from a particular perspective, they have a political stance. While he was never about doing political films, he was a political person. He had strong political beliefs, and since he put so much of himself into his films and he demanded so much of the selves of everybody else who worked on his films, including me, our politics were always going to be at least in the background of those films. This film was an opportunity to put politics in the foreground.
Ah, nice.
I mean, I don't know. I have to admit, it's been a while since I've watched any of the Reanimator films. Did any of those give off any kind of? From what I remember, I never. I mean, Castle Freak, he did. You know, like we were talking about earlier, Castle Freak doesn't really.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
it's more of like a fan. If there's any kind of commentary, I guess it'd be like the family or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm like, in Beyond Reanimator, if there's any, it's about the prison system. That's about it.
He continues, especially when Brian came to us and said, I have an idea, House of Reanimator, and the house is the White House. And that sold us. We were not only happy, but anxious to get to work on the project. We were not particular fans of the Iraq War. We were not particularly fans of the Bush administration or of certain particular right-wing political structures that have subsequently, over the course of the first couple of decades of this millennium and going back a number of decades into the previous one, have been developing in such a way as to take control of a large wedge of American politics in a particular way. That way being having billionaire-backed funding to buy certain political agendas and institute them in the government. We thought that sounded like something we could use to write a Reanimator story.
So basically, it's House of Cards, but with Herbert.
Oh, really? I say I've never watched House of Cards. I've heard of House of Cards. Well, maybe they stole House of Cards from them.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's just, it sounds a little...
I don't know. Herbert West compared to Kevin Spacey, though, I think I'd go with
Herbert West.
Yeah. But let's not stray into that. That means you have to be reanimating. Well, let's see. Who would you reanimate given that particular storyline? Of course, you're going to be reanimating the executive branch. You're going to be reanimating the president eventually. The film would have been Stuart Gordon's return to the character that began his film career, and producer Brian Usna, I know I pronounced that wrong, had helmed the second and third films. Would House have accounted for the previous two movies, or would have acted as more of a direct follow-up to his original film? In the sense that Herbert was a criminal, if I'm putting the various Reanimator stories together correctly, Herbert had become a convict and had a criminal record, and we used that. We did wind it back to the original film too. The dynamic of House of Reanimator was going to be the renewed and developed relationship between Herbert West and Dan Kane. So that was going to take us back to the original Reanimator as well.
Cool.
So looks like they were kind of trying to pull a sort of like a Halloween 2018 sort of deal.
Yep.
Which that's just become
seems to be working.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't really have any complaints about it. You know what I mean?
I mean, they could do the same thing if they wanted to revitalize Freddy. Is just bring Langenkamp back and follow the same formula. As Halloween.
That's exactly what I've thought. I mean, I don't know. You think it'd work with Jason? Even if we're ever going to get another Jason movie again.
Yeah. Maybe with Corey Feldman, he could come back because his character was
Tommy Jarvis.
He was in 3 movies, so his character alone, I think, could do it.
Yeah, he could.
And he'd do it. He'd be like, "Yes, I need some work."
Yeah, I'm voicing Ninja Turtles cartoon.
Ever since other Corey died, it's just not been the same.
Oh my God! All right then. So, what exactly was the story of House of Reanimator? There are at least 12 treatments that span 7 to 8 years, covering 2 different administrations and 2 really different approaches to what the story could be. They all have some things in common, but the original idea for the story from the early 2000s is, to some degree, quite different from the developed idea from the early part of the second decade of the 2000s, for a couple of reasons. One reason was Stewart was really attracted to the project at the beginning because the Bush administration looked so ripe for being characters in this particular Reanimator story.
Well,
you remember
W is already so caricatured in real.
Yeah.
He's
You
perfect.
You can swing at a cat without hitting a Bush impersonator.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember, Bush's vice president, Dick Cheney, had heart problems. Oh my God. They were going to be very PC with this. Jeez.
Oh, man. I wonder if they were even going to get into Cheney blowing that dude's face.
Yeah.
Shooting that guy's face.
So the original treatment starts with him in a meeting with the billionaire backers of the Bush administration and a number of oil billionaires from the petroleum industry, which turns into a celebratory party because they have gamed the system and gotten almost carte blanche backing from that administration, as oil companies have from multiple administrations. During the party, he overdoses and has a heart attack and dies. That was our hook. Jeez!
Yes, I love it. I'm in.
Brian, although he very much respected Stewart's work and my work and was willing to go with us in any direction we wanted to go, always had the idea and perspective that the characters should not necessarily be recognizable political figures, that the idea should be that the President of the United States would be reanimated. That idea alone was central to the movie, and the President, like the President in a lot of American films in which the President is a character, isn't necessarily recognizable as any particular other president. It's usually some generic kind of president. It's Michael Douglas or Morgan Freeman. It's a president, which, yeah, I could honestly, I could see if this moved further that it would be a caricature of George Bush and Dick Cheney and the lot, but
I mean,
it wouldn't be.
Remember, at that time, there were 2 shows. There was like That's My Bush.
Yeah.
And then there was like a cartoon as well. One was live action, one was cartoon. I can't remember which one was which, but they
Little Bush?
Something, yeah. And they all used legit Bush. Like he was in everything. So like I think they could have gotten away with it and it would have been hilarious and people would have been okay with it.
There was also that film, Oliver Stone. It was called W, remember?
Oh, W, yeah, that's really he did a good job. What's his name's kid from Amityville's kid? Can't think of it.
Josh Brolin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
James Brolin's kid is what
James, yeah. Honestly, I don't like, because those, I don't know, because people, it seems like, just have such, you know, they look at horror films like pornography, you know what I mean? And I could just see like the W movie. And I don't know, I've never seen it. I'm sure it's Oliver Stone, so I'm sure it doesn't paint him particularly in a good light.
Yeah, they try to do a little column A, column B. The better one, in my opinion, is the Dick Cheney one, VP or whatever it was. With
the Christian Bale. Yeah.
Oh, dude, freaking Sam Rockwell playing George W. Bush.
Oh, really? Sam Rockwell?
Yeah, dude.
Oh, I need to check that out then. I just knew about Christian Bale.
Sam Rockwell as George W. Bush is the best shit ever.
But I see, I guess you could get away with it with like, you know, a comedic stance and, you know, like, or a dramatic, but I don't think they would let.
But yeah, I get you. I feel like if I was writing this, I'd be like, this is what I want. I'm okay if it's a generic president called James H. George Bush, right? Or something, you know, something.
Yeah. I'm not saying they would have particularly went. I think they would have gone through with it. I'm just saying the studio or somebody would have said, listen, you can't kill the president and bring him back and have them being a fucking undead zombie. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Continuing, we were specifically interested at the beginning of the project and making it about the Bush presidency. We developed a story from that particular hook, with Dick Cheney dying and necessarily having to be reanimated to keep that administration stable, especially in the middle of a war. But then as the war dragged on and as the administration changed, we would go back and revise the story until the last version of the story that we did was more generic, in the sense that it was a more generic president of the United States. and it isn't specifically the Bush administration or any recognizable figures from it, but the idea that the government is still at the beck and call of billionaires and power brokers was still part of the story. Yeah, see, so I guess they even... So the story developed through several different models and eventually several different structures. But the core element, of course, is that the President of the United States becomes a reanimated zombie. Which, if that isn't fundamental satire, I don't think it exists. Yes, yeah, my cinematics exactly.
I love it.
Yeah, this is going to be pure satire. So how does West find himself in the White House? Once the vice president dies, in the later versions, it's actually the president. There's an assassination attempt and he's killed. There's a great pressure among the functionaries and the administration to keep power. So there's a figure or two behind the scenes of the administration that wants to keep it in power. Did I just read that sentence twice? I think I did. They have, as you would imagine, an extensive knowledge of the backgrounds of important people throughout the country. When it's reported to one of the power brokers in the administration by a functionary that the vice president is dead, the power broker processes the news and then replies, "No, he's not." In the later version, it's the president whose death is reported and then denied. Since it's in their interest to keep the vice president or president alive, and they're aware of Herbert West and his reanimation serum, they decide to seek him out. But in our story, he's disappeared. He's on the run and has fallen off the map. No one knows where he is, so they have to contact the next best thing, Dan Kane. So they go and essentially kidnap Dan Kane because he'd worked with Herbert West and have to try to redevelop and reconstitute West's reanimating serum.
I guess that's better than Herman Cain.
Who's Herman Cain?
He's that guy that ran for president when Trump first ran. He's a Republican. He's the guy that owned the Godfather's pizzas. And then he was the big supporter behind Trump that said COVID is a hoax. And so he wouldn't wear a mask anywhere. And he was like one of the first politicians to die of COVID.
Oh my God. I don't remember any of that. I tried to stay out of the news, though, to be completely honest with you. It's more depressing than this shit. He doesn't want to do it. He's sworn all of that stuff off and has tried to rebuild his life. It's taken him decades to try and put all of the terrible things that happened behind him. He's the same idealist he was in the original Reanimator. He wants to do what all doctors want to do, defeat death. But that's idealism. Makes him not want to support any administration that would consider putting a zombie in charge of the executive branch of our government. So we had a couple of those through the years. So he refuses at first, but in one of the versions of the treatment, we have him have a family. So they threaten his family and he tries to work on it, but he can't get it quite right. There are, of course, consequences to that, and a certain amount of mayhem goes on, resulting from his reanimating fluid, which leads to certain, let's say, unfortunate bloody circumstances.
I like body circumstances.
Yeah, that's kind of strange. I would think they go straight into West because he's essentially the star of all these films.
Yeah, me too. Very interesting.
But go with his partner. When push comes to shove and they threaten Dan's family, he says, "I'm sorry, I don't seem to be able to reestablish the reanimating fluid, but I do think I know how to bring Herbert West back." And so he has them release a press release that Dan Kane, is in the process of developing a serum to extend the 6 to 12 minute brain of death in hopes that would eventually allow for the reanimation of the dead. He knows that 1, Herbert will hear about this, and 2, if we remember from the original Reanimator, Herbert cannot stand the idea that somebody else will get credit for his work. So of course Herbert shows up to take credit and to accost and assault Dan for taking credit for his work, because he's the same old egotistical narcissist that we remember Herbert was. Besides being a great genius, so that's how they get Herbert, because he injects himself into the story because of his ego. That's a nice little... I dig that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm digging it too.
Once Herbert's in the story and he's recruited to reanimate the vice president, there are certain story developments wherein the first lady is killed. Jeez. The president is killed. And so eventually everybody who shows for a presidential press conference or at the Kennedy Center honors is essentially a reanimated corpse, but they're able to recruit Herbert because they give him a great lab. They give him the best laboratory he's ever had and carte blanche to do what he wants. Therefore, Herbert and Dan are reunited. They're given the laboratory of their dreams, complete power to reanimate the most powerful figures in the free world. And that's essentially Act 1 of the very first version, and the better part of Act 1 for subsequent versions of this story.
Wow.
I mean, they're just... See, I don't know. That's why I just think they especially around this time, you know, post 9/11, you know, just post 9/11, you're killing the president and everybody, you know, off
That's
left
the
and
point,
right.
though. That's the point.
I know, but I don't think there'd be a studio brave enough to do something like that.
I bet you Trauma would have done it.
Yeah, they would
Lloyd,
have.
Lloyd Kaufman don't give a shit.
Well, yeah, Lloyd, he really doesn't. Oh my god, Lloyd Kaufman, jeez.
And if they'd have just waited till now, Blumhouse would have done it, because Blumhouse just basically says, "Oh, look, it's a horror script. Let's do it."
Yeah. No matter how good, for better or for worse.
They don't even care.
Oh, Mr. P. There we go. Was a tad hesitant to reveal too much detail about this initial setup. He did give a bit of insight into where the story would have gone beyond the first act. Several of the versions, especially during the Iraq War, focus on the cost of war, and we've developed the idea of zombie soldiers. Because the war was going on much longer than they had anticipated, and there were more casualties, and they wanted to keep the casualties low because it was costing them political capital, they decided, since they had Herbert West, that they wanted him to reanimate soldiers and develop a zombie army. So they would take casualties from Iraq and Afghanistan and bring them back, have them reanimated so they didn't look like casualties, and they could send them back into the field. That's a powerful and quite easy to grasp satiric perspective on the war in Iraq. The idea that dead casualties from that war coming back as zombies has been done a couple of times, as in the Master of Horror episode, Joe Dante's Homecoming, so I eventually couldn't do that. I've never seen that. Have you?
Mm-mm.
I've never watched. I've always been. It's one of those things that, like, when I see it, I'm like, oh, I need to find that, you know, track that down and watch it.
So Masters of Horror is on one of the damn streaming apps that I have. It's on there.
Yeah.
And I feel like it didn't hold up well, kind of
Really?
like the 90s Twilight Zone.
Oh, really?
Because, like, I've tried to watch the first episode. I couldn't get into it because it was so, like, a product of its time. And then I tried to watch the second one, and then I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to look for directors that I like. And I've not had any good luck yet. And I literally think that it's just because it's a product of its time, and it feels very from that era.
Well, they got some pretty.
Oh, dude!
Big
I mean, they
names.
had Wes Craven. I mean, they had everybody.
Toby Hooper.
They had everybody. But I'm just saying.
I am interested in this, though. That is an interesting concept just by itself, even without a Reanimator film. You know,
yeah,
sending these people back as the undead. I found that kind of fascinating.
Yep, I love it.
That was one direction we were going to go in. The other direction being, once you've got a zombie president and a zombie vice president, well, if you remember from the previous Reanimator films, the dead reanimate pretty angrily. It's pretty much the reptile brain that reanimates.
Yep.
Then you get to the power brokers. What they want is control over the politicians. Their money usually buys them control. Well, money doesn't buy you control of a zombie. There aren't zombie dollars, so they had to find another way to control the politicians that they had reanimated. So we looked at possibilities for developing that idea for the second act. The other thing that developed over the story was this new relationship between Dan and Herbert. Herbert only sees what's in front of him. Herbert is always only moving forward because science only moves forward. He only wants to make his reanimating fluid work better and to reanimate more perfectly and to develop a better serum. He's just a mad scientist. Dan looks back. He understands that their history together wreaked havoc and ruined lives, especially the life of the woman that he loved. So he carries guilt around with him and blames himself primarily. But when Herbert returns to the scene, he understands that he's now responsible for making this madman even more powerful. Well, you didn't dig that?
Just, it's like, let my bad guys be bad guys.
Well, I mean, Dan in the original film, he wasn't really a bad guy. He was just sort of there along for the road. You guys be Barbara Crampton's
Yeah.
boyfriend, Hubba Hubba. Barbara Crampton. Have you seen her lately?
Mm-mm.
She gets more and more beautiful the older she gets. It's the oddest thing I've ever seen. It's just crazy. You look up a picture of her or something. Okay, so there's a great conflict between Dan and Herbert, as there always sort of was. That's what we bring from the first movie into this one. So we worked that out in the story as well. If that conflict is what this film is about, then one of them has to die at the end. And of course, if one of them dies at the end, what does that mean? Whoever survives will reanimate the other? Yes, you have imagined correctly. And we, of course, investigated both of those endings. One with Herbert dying and being reanimated, the other with Dan being the one to die and get brought back. We were willing to try both those endings, whichever one fit the story that we eventually wrote. But even if it's Herbert who dies, it's a Reanimator film. It doesn't mean he's dead. Let's put it this way. It doesn't mean it's the end of the series. Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Franchise, number one rule of a franchise, definitely number one rule of a horror franchise.
I know.
I think there was an island of Reanimator in the works at one point.
There was, yeah. I knew about.
Just as there was with the original Frankenstein franchise or with the Hammer Dracula franchise. There are dozens of ways to keep this franchise going, but it had to be the right ending for this particular story. You want it to really function as a powerful ending. If those two guys became the main adversaries, Jesus, it would have a certain amount of character-driven story value. That, of course, would have been the ending, but it wouldn't necessarily mean the ending of the series, of course, because it's the Reanimator series.
Yeah.
Okay, they just reestablished what they said in the beginning of the paragraph. Anyway, potentially killing off Herbert West, the main character, that would have been one hell of a surprise. One of Stewart's rules was always go all the way. It was one of my script rules too. Go all the way. If you looked at some of the memorials to Stewart, one of the things that a number of people said, be they actors, people who worked on special effects, people who wrote for him, myself included, we all had the same experience with Stewart. You'd write something if you were a writer, or you would act a scene if you were an actor. Then he would come to you and say, that was great, but can you give me more of this or more of that? And you're going, well, I was going to build to this more. You were going to get that later in the script, in this scene, etc. And he would always say, no, do it now. We'll find something better later. And you always did. So the idea was to go all the way right away and just go all the way every chance you got. And you would eventually find the way to top yourself. It always took the story in a new and even more mad direction. That was what was great about working with Stewart, especially in this genre, where you go all the way and you're expected to go all the way and to be as mad as you possibly can. It was Stewart's style. It was the culture Stewart developed on the set among his collaborators. You never worried about that. You never worried about, oh my gosh, we'll do something and then we can't undo it. Well, no, it's not that you can't undo it. It's that you can then do it better.
Right.
You can do more. You can be more entertaining. You can be more outrageous. And that's the principle of our work. Well, I mean, geez,
and that's
I
the
don't know.
bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
Well, I mean, good Lord, that I got it. I was like 14 when I saw Reanimator, and I mean, I know it's been talked about to death, but I think you know what scene I'm probably talking about. The head scene.
Mm-hmm.
That was the most shocking thing I'd ever seen in a film up to that point.
For sure, yeah.
I mean, I remember me and my friend just being like gobsmacked. You know what I mean? We're just like, can they get away with this?
Mm-hmm.
Had any tentative casting been done beyond the expected return of Jeffrey Combs as Herbert West? Was Bruce Abbott up for returning as Dan Kane? And of course, there were those rumors that William H. Macy would have played George W. Bush. Bill Macy would have been George Bush in the original version. He actually even sort of looks like him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't really think he does. I thought he'd be great. That fit perfectly. And we had the president do some spectacularly awful things. We also would, of course, ask Bruce to return as Dan Kane. So why did the project ultimately not come to fruition?
This is what I want to know, because and if it's just politics, I'm gonna be real mad, because you could have easily just changed the president.
Yeah. It says it would have had a larger budget than the other Reanimator films. You're doing a mock-up of the Oval Office, you're doing a mock-up of the Rose Garden, you're doing a highly equipped science lab, and a couple of the versions, there was a cryogenics lab where they could keep bodies fresh frozen. There was more production value, so you were going to need a bigger budget. So it's probably a harder film to put together, budget-wise. Plus, it's got political content. A lot of people don't want to touch that. You kill the president of the United States. I have an idea that if we made the film, we would have gotten on some political list someplace.
How very interesting, Lance, that here you become king today and you wanting to talk about politics and about leadership and things. I find it very ironic.
Really? See, I've always considered me a member of the Death Party.
Oh, God.
I just say we kill everybody.
Well, we do.
Yeah. See, we kill everybody, and there's nobody left to get mad at. Nobody gets mad at each other if they're all dead. There's no conflict.
What if it's just down to me and you?
May the best man win.
Oh, I wouldn't kill you. I'd keep you alive.
May the best Mr. win.
I'd reanimate you if I killed you, though.
You don't have the sense enough to come up with a serum. A serum that looks like Ecto Cooler.
I have serumed all over you while you've slept before, so don't even worry.
Oh, God. Okay. Moving on. So I don't know what the ultimate problem really was, but it's my experience the problem is always funding. If you get some money, you didn't get enough, and you only have enough when you have enough. And when you have enough, you get to make the movie. I don't know why it didn't get produced, but if I had to guess, it's because they didn't raise the money.
Yeah, it's usually what it boils down to.
Is there a possibility that the screenplay could be rewritten to account for another president in office? What does the future of Reanimator look like? No idea. Would I do it? In a heartbeat. Would I work with those guys again? In a minute. Now, whether it's this project or some other project, I don't know. But we did develop a more generic version of House Reanimator, which is still possible to develop. The danger now is that you would go back to the very specific version, that it would be a very recognizable president and vice president. You would be reanimating. But there's a generic version too, which would work as well, but I'd love to work with those guys again. And that is the conclusion of that.
Well, I will also throw this out there, that there was also a musical version that ended up in New York and Los Angeles.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Reanimator, the musical.
Yeah.
And actually, Stuart Gordon helped write a lot of the book. So did Dennis.
Oh, really?
So did Dennis P.
I did not know that. I've heard of the musical. I didn't know they collaborated with them on it. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, with all that being said, what is your opinion?
I told you, I think this is a great idea. I would have watched the shit out of it. And it's funny because I think it was ahead of its time, because had it come out now and done this with Trump, it would have killed.
Yeah, it would have.
It would have killed.
Yeah, I'm a lot like you. I'm just saying, we're comedians. We love satire. We live for satire, no matter who it is. I would have been fine if they, I'm just saying, it's just like what he, I just forgot his name. I just got done reading, but, the last Reanimator that came out was direct-to-video. I remember it actually debuted on the Sci-Fi Channel back when I was in high school. I remember watching it.
Right.
And it was enjoyable. It was fun. Did it really hold up to the others? Not really. But I mean, it wasn't awful. It was very low budget.
Yeah.
So to think that they could come up with an idea just like this big and left field and, and have a studio. I mean, it sounds to me like they even knew it wasn't going to happen. They were almost just trying to amuse themselves.
Yeah, I mean, if the last movie you were able to get, and so this is 2003, so I mean, this is in the midst of the Bush stuff when Beyond Reanimator came out.
Oh yeah.
Is it's like, how well did it do then? You know, that's what I want to know. How well did it do on Sci-Fi that you were like, man, maybe we could re-budget this and get a bigger movie and do a fourth one?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I don't think William H. Macy would be on board. I think he would, because I mean,
depends on the paycheck, my friend.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that would be half the budget.
Yeah,
even if they did, because I mean, he's not.
I mean, it's one of those things, man. He was real hot at the time, and if he would have gotten on board ahead of time, it could have helped get funding for the big budget. You know what I mean? That's kind of one of those things as well.
But he, a lot of people, they don't look at horror films, especially Octors.
Oh, especially in the aughts.
Yeah, they don't. I couldn't. I think if they just, I think if they just could have stripped some stuff down, maybe lowered the budget a little bit. I mean, it could have been an entertaining film. It could have been, a pretty good film. I mean, it's just unfortunate. Nothing's going to top the original Reanimator. I mean, it wouldn't be better than that, but it would be just a nice continuation.
Yep. Like I said, I would have totally been down to watch it.
Oh, me too.
And, I hope that there's still hope. You always hear rumors here or there of like a Reanimator TV series,
Yeah.
kind of picking things up, or a reboot. But I think we all love Jeffrey Combs. And, I think if, or I mean, like I said, if you're going to do it, you're going to have to redo it straight horror instead of black comedy.
Yeah.
Because much like they had to do with Freddy, I know you're not a big fan, but it's like they had to go that straight horror route because he was never going to be Robert Englund, so he had to go that route. And this is the same thing. If they redo Reanimator and remake it, they're going to have to go completely dark, no black comedy.
I want to say they wanted to do Reanimator, but they wanted to do it I don't even think they were going to be associated with the films or anything. They were going to base it more off of the story.
Right. And again, that's what they would have to do. They would have to remake it via the story, which I'm just surprised. And maybe it's because of a lot of the racist shit that's come out about Lovecraft, especially with Lovecraft Country kind of putting light on that. Yeah. That there wasn't, and there is a H.P. Lovecraft anthology series that's out there, and it's terrible. But it's,
I've never heard of.
Surprised there hasn't been like a modern take on that with Lovecraft getting hot again. But I said, I think some of it's kind of some of the controversy is probably why. Because I would love to see every story created.
Yeah. God, Whispers in the Dark. I'm sure you've read that, haven't you?
Yeah.
That's another one that freaked me out. That's just a little side note. But yeah, I mean, I think they could. I think they could have made it, but I mean, I think they were just aiming too high as far as budget and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like I said, I mean, the last film was, and I don't know how well it did on the direct-to-video market. People got to understand. That's what's so crazy about this direct-to video thing, because I think we're both within this generation where the direct-to-video stuff was, I mean, they were B movies. They weren't. Yeah, I mean, they were
drive-ins. The drive-ins went away, and so mainstream theaters weren't bringing in B movies like that. So Blockbuster had to grab them. That's where the straight-to-video. But then cable started reigning supreme, and these streaming services, and I even think even back then that's why this premiered on Sci-Fi first instead of going to DVD first. So.
Yeah, and then I don't, because like especially now, I mean, it was happening pre-COVID, but now I mean with the pandemic and whatnot, you don't need to hear me say that it's coming back in a big way, but now I mean, my God, we just talked about it the other day. Godzilla versus Kong, a big budget freaking movie, a studio film, and with that we both loved and we're looking forward to, direct to streaming.
Yep. And
all these things.
Yeah, there's so many getting ready to drop. The Black Widow movie's going to be dropping on streaming first. And you saw the whole line. Conjuring 3 is going to be hitting streaming.
Yeah.
And not even like Disney, where Disney tries to make you pay extra. HBO Max is like, no, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can see it at the movie too, but we're going to drop it here.
It's just crazy because, I think of that as sort of direct to video in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you got this stuff. There's really, Netflix.
Yeah.
They get nominated for Oscars, and and
that's just the way it is. It's you got to think about it though too. People's TVs and sound systems are so different than what they used to be. I mean, you're essentially getting theater experience in a lot of ways now.
Yeah.
Though for us, the theater experience is the people, the popcorn, the whole 9 yards. It's everything. But a lot of the younger generation, that it's just watching it on a big screen is all that is for them. And, they'll just go to their dad's basement. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was Reanimator 4.
Yeah, Reanimator.
Yeah, Reanimator 4. Mr. West goes to Washington.
Which I love. I would totally be down to watch that. But so I guess that's I have to say, good decree.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, dear friends, we come to the end of another delightfully disturbing episode of Misters of the Dark. As always, thank you for listening. Thank you to the Fearscape Media Network. And thank you to Corey Adams and Ashley Jones Adams from Nothing Wrong for our delightful musical theme. Oh, God. What fresh hell is this now? Hello?
Yes! I'm Sam from the Telegram Sam Company. Telegram for Mr. No Name.
What? Wait, what? Hold on. Hold the phone. Are you all named Sam? Wait, you know what? I don't care. I don't care! Dear Mr. No Name, I regret to inform you. Yes! Wow! Oh, this is so great! Oh, excuse me, Your Highness! There's been another delivery for you, sir!
Oh, Stefan, I was just about to enact my second decree as king.
Oh, well, hold up, little man, because you might want to take a look at this first.
What? Give me that. Dear Mr. No Name, I regret to inform you of... What? Lance Bass was the one truly intended for the ground! That bastard has haunted me ever since high school.
You could probably say that fate and destiny are now in sync. Oh, how the mighty have fallen!
Well, I guess it was good while it lasted.
Oh. Well, I take back my extraneous laugh because you seem to be taking this rather well.
The truth is, Stefan, I wouldn't have made a good king. I hate getting up past noon and not much for traveling. Having to go around and kiss babies and stuff.
Yeah, I suppose you're right.
You know what, though? Nobody outside of you, me, and the dead messenger knows about the mix-up. I may be able to at least carry out my second act as king, after all.
Okay, well, hold on. First of all, it's dead messengers. Okay, and then what do you mean?
Royal subjects!
What the hell? Who are they? Where did these people cut Lance? Who the hell are these people?
To be honest, I really have no idea. I didn't think that would work. Well, anyway, loyal subject, as your faithful ruler for this one and solitary action, I order you to behead the head mister!
What?
Ow! Get off me! Unhand me, you morons! Let go of me, you shit! Lance, get off me!
But before we go, dear friends, I'll leave you with this. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Speaking of which, off with his head! No!